rebuild the city, and they will have a great city to come back home to.
One storm responsible for more than 1,000 deaths, billions of dollars in damages, and priceless moments of humanity.
We all feel closer. Our neighborhoods are closer than they used to be.
All in an effort to keep the spirit of our state alive in Hurricane Katrina's wake. Even 2 decades later, we are still rising.
20 years ago today, a rapidly intensifying tropical storm Katrina was inundating South Florida, without Louisiana even in consideration. But 48 to 72 hours later, that would all change.
And it looks again like she's going to cross right over southeast Louisiana.
But no one could foresee the burden that storm brought to our homes here in southeast Louisiana.
This is the levee that broke, and this is the flow of the water.
An engineering failure with real human consequences. Levee breaches that brought an overwhelming amount of loss and havoc.
More than 50 levees and flood walls buckled, including the 17th Street Canal in Lakeview, the London Avenue Canal in Gentilly, and right here, this levee at the Industrial Canal in the 9th Ward.
WDSU anchor Travers Mackle explains the breach and, most importantly, how it was fixed.
At his Lakeview home.
There's the levee right there.
Right there, right.
And if you want, I can open my back gate because you can kind of get a real feel for how close we are.
Alberto Zuniga lived through Hurricane Katrina 20 years ago. His house on Bel Air Drive sits less than 100 yards away from where the 17th Street Canal levee broke, and some scars from the flooded home still remain.
It was much higher, but it settled here for the longest time. It left a mark, but you know, everyone had to gut the first floor and you know, clean out everything and treat everything.
Is that hard to believe? I mean, look, you're a pretty tall guy, and the water, I mean, we're reaching up here.
So the top has gold leaf and the bottom doesn't. So that was the water line.
Zuniga says he was warned by family about the location.
When I was about to buy this house, my dad said, "Are you sure you want to live here next to the levee?" And I said, "Of course. What could ever go wrong?" Well, you know, he was right.
All of Lakeview was flooded when the levee gave way, followed by breaks on the London Avenue Canal in Gentilly and the Industrial Canal in the 9th Ward, leaving 80% of New Orleans underwater. One of the worst disasters in American history.
When you look at the dollar value, definitely yes. So you're looking at over $100 billion worth of damage.
Dr. Norma Jean Mattei is a renowned civil engineer who just retired from the University of New Orleans. She's also sat on the National Infrastructure Advisory Council and has studied and lived Hurricane Katrina. A storm made worse by engineering flaws.
Had we not had the breaches, we would not have had the disaster that we had.
In April 2007, the American Society of Civil Engineers calling the flooding the worst engineering catastrophe in U.S. history. So why did the major levees fail? Experts determining design flaws and inadequate construction to be the main culprits. Some examples: sheet piles not driven far enough into the soil, weak spots created where different sections of the walls actually met, misjudged soil conditions in South Louisiana, and poor construction on overall projects. The disaster leading to major changes.
We had to actually change the state constitution to get better levees, and we did. In fact, when it passed statewide, it was the largest vote for a constitutional amendment in our state's history. Over 80% of the state voted for those reforms.
That opened the door to $15 billion in federal funds, used to redo levees around Metro New Orleans, protecting areas like Jefferson, Plaquemines, and St. Bernard parishes, as well as New Orleans, fortifying them, building them right, and protecting the area from storm surge.
We now have a much better flood protection system in all of southeast Louisiana than we did before the storm.
There's no question in my mind that we are better protected. And it was built very quickly.
And it's worked.
And it's worked. But that was an amazing project. And it still amazes me that that project was done so successfully, so quickly.
Back in Lakeview, Zuniga now lives a life he thought at one point was impossible. He rebuilt on the same property and raised his family.
I hope it holds, but you know, every time a big hurricane's coming in, you know, we think, okay, is this it? Throw everything upstairs. get out of town, and hopefully we can come back, because it would be hard to do it again.
Hurricane Katrina uprooted many lives, creating one of the largest internal displacements in modern American history. More than 1 million people were forced to leave their homes in search of safety and stability. I talked to a local woman, Becky Steinkamp, who says she can't believe her temporary evacuation turned permanent.
It's our home, and it feels like our home even when we're away.
New Orleans is her heartbeat, even though she lives in Oklahoma. Becky Steinkamp was swept away to the Sooner State during Katrina when she got an urgent call to evacuate.
You need to pack up and leave because the hurricane has made a turn and it's coming this way.
Like many other evacuees, Becky thought she would eventually return, but her plans changed quickly.
And the next morning, I got a call from a friend, and she said, "You can't go back." She said, "You cannot see a rooftop from the river to the lake." And this is St. Bernard Parish. And so then we were just, okay, now what do we do?
Becky and her family were among millions headed for uncertainty. About 1.5 million people left their homes in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama because of Hurricane Katrina. Families settled in places like Baton Rouge and Mobile and Houston. Houston, Texas housed about 200,000 evacuees at its peak.
And it was tough. It was a tough decision because I love New Orleans. The hurricane kind of washed us away.
For Becky and her family, Oklahoma City is where things just fell into place because she found work as a court reporter, and she enrolled her kids in school for a sense of normalcy and stability.
Kids are in school, they're happy, I'm working, and my boyfriend at the time was working, and so we just decided to stay. The people are great there, and they were so kind to us.
And that helped because back home in Chalmette, her house was obliterated by the storm.
And it was, just a mess. And it brought tears to my eyes. It did. And it wasn't about the material things. It was the memories. It was our life there. To this day, I'm just amazed. I had a crystal cross on my mantelpiece. And that cross never moved. It stayed right there, right where it was. And, I kind of take it as a sign that somebody's looking out for us.
Still, she knows it's impossible to escape natural disasters. She jokes that she traded hurricanes for twisters, showing us the sample picture of their tornado shelter. But she has never swapped her loyalty.
We're big Saints fans. We follow the Saints up in Oklahoma.
For Becky, New Orleans never left her. She comes back to visit every year for Jazz Fest and other events. She says the city carries the music to her soul.
We love to brag about it, and it's great to be able to come back and enjoy all the things.
Salah Kim, WDSU News.
Across New Orleans, signs of Katrina still pepper the city. Buildings that were once pillars of this community now linger as a sign of what was lost. Millions, really billions of dollars worth of infrastructure are still needing new life. And tonight, we are getting a timeline on that rebirth.
Charity Hospital, Lindy Boggs, Six Flags, even the Municipal Auditorium. Eyesores lingering after a near miss from the eye of Hurricane Katrina. Each sitting stagnant like the Katrina floodwaters that left them damaged or deserted. But now, nearly 2 decades later, there's some signs of life that leaders are hoping will grow into revitalization.
A lot of times it's like a duck on a pond. It's very placid and doesn't seem like a whole lot's happening on the surface, but there's kicking and churning and a lot of work happening underneath the surface and behind the scenes.
Jeffrey Schwartz oversees economic development in the city of New Orleans and works alongside other top staffers to help decide the best use for many of these blighted buildings. And for some of the spaces, they're thinking outside of the box.
I think to be really thoughtful in how we're developing and where we're developing and for who we're developing, I think that's been an opportunity. And of course, that takes a little bit more time than just developing for the sake of development.
For instance, at Lindy Boggs, the once bustling medical facility has become a dilapidated stain of this mid-city neighborhood. There have been several dreams for this space over its 2 decades of sitting vacant, but now the city says there's a clear path forward set to begin in 2026. A mixed-use development, residential plus retail spaces with added drainage benefits.
To revitalize properties and get them back on the tax rolls, that reduces crime, that increases quality of life, and it gives you a place to live, work, and eat in your own neighborhood.
The old naval base in the Bywater is closer to seeing new life, with a groundbreaking set to happen in just a few months.
It's probably one of the most exciting projects right now.
Closed by the Department of Defense 15 years ago, developers are about to reach the first $170 million phase of the project, with 294 units of affordable housing and a new energy incubator inside. But there's also other ideas floating down the riverfront on what to do with this prime real estate.
We're seeing activity with Governor Nichols and Esplade now through Audubon, and really excited about that, all the way down to Poland Avenue in the Bywater.
Meanwhile, what's set to be the anchor for the downtown Bio District, Charity Hospital, is a project that has to happen, according to city planners. The $650 million renovation wouldn't just signal a boost for hospitals, but for the city itself. Leaders are also eyeing a way to bring back West End, with new legislation paving the way for more businesses to possibly set up shop in what was really once a happening spot near the lakefront.
I would love to see, a market, right? You always hear Pike's Place in Seattle kind of being the gold standard. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be that, but I think there's a lot of opportunity.
But they're also looking at ways to incorporate more private-public partnerships, touting the success of the 504 golf site.
This is an investment in downtown New Orleans in a signature location that's a gateway to the city.
The change in the city skyline, a tangible example as to how the city altered its own business strategy. Examples of New Orleans trying to get it right for the people who live here and harness New Orleans' potential in innovative ways.
The city of New Orleans had roughly 1,200 Katrina-related projects, with the federal government obligated to pay $2.4 billion. To date, it's paid out $1.7 billion, with $333 million in process. That's about half of all the recovery dollars.
Boarded windows, empty lots.
A porch light that never went out.
In a city that won't quit.
One neighborhood is still waiting.
Katrina still rising.
Right after the break.
This mural marks a spot where the levees broke here in the 9th Ward, sending floodwaters just gushing in. This area, one of the hardest hit and slowest to recover.
The images, painted by local artists, depicts the journey over the past 20 years, and it's an effort to rebuild and restore life. WDSU anchor Travis Mackel explains why some feel this area of the lower 9th Ward feels left out.
The video and images, shocking. Flood ravaged and destroyed. You could barely make out the neighborhood that was the lower 9th Ward in the days following Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And the rebuilding proving to be an uphill battle.
I came back about 2007 or 8, and I finished this in 2010.
Freddie Jones, a longtime resident of the lower 9th Ward's Holy Cross area, was fast to come back and has worked to maintain his home.
Can you believe we're going to hit the 20th anniversary this August?
Yeah, I'm getting old, I know.
But he's watched as progress in this part of the city has been anything but speedy.
It's slow, a little too slow. I mean, especially on the other side of Claiborne. You know, you go back there, it's still, you still see remnants of it.
What you don't see here, a lot of stores, restaurants, and shops. The community still scattered, and the numbers bear that out. In August 2005, when the levee on the Industrial Canal gave way, the lower 9th Ward had a population of right around 14,000. In 2023, that number, just over 5,000. A 65% decrease in people 18 years after the storm. That's according to stats compiled by the nonprofit Data Center. As for housing, 20 years ago, The data center says there were over 5,600 total homes and apartment units. In 2023, just over 2,200.
Unfortunately, we haven't had a whole lot to happen down here in the Lower Nine.
Charmaine Marchand is born and raised in this area. A child of the Lower Nine, she still calls it home. Marchand is a former state rep, and when Katrina wiped out this area, Marchand was the lawmaker in office representing this community.
This is where my heart is, so this is where I'm going to be.
Does it break your heart seeing some of the conditions in this neighborhood right now?
For sure, yeah.
So with the eyes of the world watching, why didn't the Lower Ninth Ward make a comeback?
Some of it has to do with just financial opportunities. Some of it has to do with lack of resources.
For example, some property owners with rentals took the insurance money and never rebuilt. Others took state money and rebuilt in different parishes or communities, and some didn't have the opportunity to do either, finding it too hard to navigate the political red tape. And there's fallout from all of that.
The companies don't want to come because there's not enough population. The population don't want to come because there's not enough services. So it is definitely which comes first, the chicken or the egg. It's definitely that scenario.
20 years after Hurricane Katrina, the area still trying to recover.
Because it was a jewel then and it's still a jewel now.
One that many say just needs to be polished. And people here aren't giving up. They know one day the Lower Nine will shine again.
It's up and coming, slow, but, you know, we enjoy it.
And soon, Freddie Jones hopes others will as well. Reporting in the Lower Ninth Ward, I'm Travers Mackle, WDSU News.
Across the city, people were seen clinging to rooftops, crying out for help.
Here in the Lower Ninth Ward, one man combed through his neighborhood, gallantly saving as many people as he could. WDSU reporter Shay O'Connor has his story.
20 years ago, as many were stuck on their roofs and on anything they could find, holding on to hope, there were some citizens in the Lower Ninth Ward who took matters into their own hands, including Mr. Michael Knight.
I heard a lot of noise, and he said, the water is coming up, the water is coming up, and the phone just went out.
Alarming Andrea Anderson, a teenager when Hurricane Katrina made landfall. In those moments, she only wanted to hear back from her father.
That was the last time I heard my dad's voice until I seen them, you know, when everybody came back.
But in that time, it said Michael Knight helped to save hundreds of his neighbors from their rooftops and from the attics of their homes when water rushed through the Lower Ninth Ward neighborhood. For many, Knight was their only lifeline.
He found a boat, and that it wasn't a electric boat or anything. I'm talking about they was paddling.
It's why years after Knight's death, and he's still hailed a hero.
If you from across the canal, you know Michael Knight.
I heard one boom, I thought a big transformer.
In this clip, Knight is seen speaking about his experience during the storm. Knight died about 10 years ago. His daughters say their father was extremely proud of the Lower Ninth Ward neighborhood, but will be sad to see the slow progress today.
I just feel like our community should be up and running better than what it is. You know, we're talking about a long time. This was 2005 that Katrina hit, and we're in 2025 now.
Michael Knight was a local hero, but he was not alone. About 43% of people who were saved from their homes in the wake of Katrina were saved by friends and neighbors who got to them quicker than response teams. Some had to save themselves. And Shay O'Connor, WDSU News.
Tonight, WDSU investigative reporter Cassie Sherm has the story of a man who lived through it all, from being trapped in the attic to swimming through the flood and surviving that chaos inside the Superdome.
And get this, 2 decades later, he is living in that very house that he tried to flee, recounting his experience.
Bruce Snow remembers the moments the storm ended, not with silence, not with wind, but with water.
I was taking a nap on the couch and then I set my feet down on the floor and went splash.
Upstairs, it was sweltering. Bruce, his mother, still recovering from surgery, his uncle, and their little dog. And one garbage bag. Inside it, the only thing he thought to save, a stuffed hippo.
As a pillow, so I grabbed him and brought him up to the attic.
The attic was hot, still silent outside, until neighbors offered a chance to get out.
Those guys were angels, absolutely.
They were dropped miles away from the Superdome, the only shelter left. Then came a rowboat, 2 NOPD officers, and a choice.
He's got a floaty on and everything. He's prepared. We're going to swim to over here by that church. Can everybody swim?
So he swam, made it to the Superdome looking for refuge, but he says what he found was a nightmare.
A couple more thousand people showed up. It became so foul that more and more people would just use the bathroom wherever they were.
There was fights, heat, hunger, and panic.
Unmonitored group of really angry people. As the conditions worsened, the smell worsened, primordial.
Shots were fired, people screaming, some died quietly.
You heard pow, 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 3 shots. And this whole herd of thousands of people came charging, screaming, ah! Just hunkered down. It was the greatest panic I've ever witnessed. Biblical old guy sitting in a chair in the stands, 40-yard line, great seats. That was the end of his story.
But even in the darkest moments, there were flickers of humanity.
And he stood there, flapping it on the babies to cool them. He never stopped flapping his arms.
After nearly a week, Bruce and his family were herded on buses, waited in the sun, stood in filth, boarded a military plane bound to Arkansas.
The first time it hit me, we made it out of there, but wow, will it ever come back?
Only to come back to the same house.
Big pile of trash, and crowned on top of it was a teddy bear. Last parting moment with their friend. So I'm just glad I brought my hippo with me, you know.
Turning his story into a book.
Tough at times, nightmares, wake up and stuff, you know, sure.
Can everybody swim?
Reliving it, condensing it, and now it lives on a shelf.
Just one of the many stories of Katrina. In New Orleans, I'm Cassie Sherm, WDSU News.
Billions in recovery dollars were allocated in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, critical funding for families, government, and infrastructure.
But are we better? Are we safer? Do we have a better quality of life? WDSU anchor Travis Mackle went to get answers from those who were involved in the process when the money was handed out.
Everything here, I remember exactly who donated it, why.
At the Floodhouse Museum and Levee exhibit in Gentilly, the history of Katrina is on full display. The house, a complete replica of a destroyed home back in 2005. The levee breaks, flooding, and travesty, a painful reminder of the hurt.
Coast Guard in the middle of a rescue here. We have multiple families on rooftops.
So many suffered in 2005.
And I feel like it was last week, you know, everything that we went through, the feelings, the emotions.
Sandy Rosenthal started levees.org after Katrina, a way to bring awareness to the area's recovery.
I think the world knows what really happened. The world knows it wasn't just a storm. It was that these levees should have held.
And after the storm, almost $200 billion was sent to Louisiana. Money used to rebuild, well, pretty much everything.
This is a city that is unique to the world, not to the country, and it was worth saving.
Jim Tucker was the Speaker of the Louisiana House of Representatives in the important years after Hurricane Katrina made landfall.
We were cutting from whole cloth a pattern. There was no pre-Katrina roadmap or game book that you could pull out and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do in this instance.
Uncharted territory.
Uncharted territory on this scale.
The man tasked with leading the conversation and playing a key role on where billions of dollars would go.
Did we spend every penny as best we could? No. Did we spend every penny best we could we thought we were doing? Yes. Were there things that I would do differently today? Oh, hell yes. But overall, we're moving in the right direction, and this city's a far better place on healthcare, education, infrastructure than it ever was before the storm.
Tucker pulling the veil back on how lawmakers cut up that cash.
The big yin and yang in the spending came down to, do you spend it on infrastructure or do you spend it on housing? And I think that we did a pretty good job of trying to balance that, but at the end of the day, the government was responsible for infrastructure. Housing could be done through private insurance. We leaned heavy on, when you think about where we spent some of those dollars in 2008, 2009, you think about the widening of I-10 all through Jefferson. That was all done with post-Katrina money. You talk about monies at the port to keep us competitive there.
Other positives of money well spent. Dozens of new school buildings built across New Orleans and in Jefferson Parish. 2 new hospitals in the city, UMC and New Orleans East Hospital, and plenty of rebuilt homes. But, as the saying goes, money can't buy everything.
I was one of those people. I thought the amount of money that was being pumped in this city
after Katrina would change the entire face of the city. And unfortunately, in some respects we have, in a lot of respects we haven't. Again, brand new schools, 2 new hospitals. I think our universities have recovered well, but at the end of the day, we still have a lot of streets that need to be fixed, and there was money given for that purpose.
Charles Rice is a former city attorney and chief administrative officer for New Orleans. He applauds the federal levee system, which costs $15 billion and has worked to protect the city from storm surge, but has bigger flooding concerns: aging infrastructure and decade-old pumps, pipes, and turbines at the Sewage and Water Board.
Could more have been done to help aging infrastructure back then?
I think a lot of could have been done. The fact that we still had the same exact pumps, or at least the same exact power system operating those pumps as we had pre-Katrina, is extremely disappointing. The fact that we didn't go in, just put in a brand new system while the money was there, is very disappointing. The fact that
it may have cost $1 billion, but we had it.
But we had, that's right, we had the money. We could have done it.
I agree, in hindsight, there was more that could have been done on the infrastructure side, but without more money, you would have had to take it either from a different infrastructure project or from the housing programs. Sewage and Water Board was a beast then. It's a beast today that the next mayor is going to have to deal with.
Positives and negatives from billions of dollars sent to the area after Katrina and how it was used. The history remembered here, and the judgment far from over.
Money cannot fix everything.
20 years since the storm.
Work ahead.
Neighbors to lift. A promise kept.
Louisiana came back because we had each other
and we protected our culture.
20 years later, the work
still isn't done.
We are still rising.